Venus has one of the most unsettling facts in the entire solar system. On that planet, a day can be longer than a year. That sounds like a joke the first time you hear it, because our brains are built around Earth. We expect a planet to spin fairly quickly, we expect sunrise and sunset to make intuitive sense, and we expect a year to feel like the bigger clock. Venus breaks all of that. It sits close to us in the sky, it is almost Earth's size, and yet its timeline feels like it belongs to a planet from another universe. To understand why Venus feels so wrong, we need to separate two ideas that people usually blend together. A year is the time a planet takes to go around the sun once. A day is tied to rotation, but even that comes in more than one flavor. There is the sidereal day, which measures one full spin relative to distant stars, and there is the solar day, which measures the time from one noon or sunrise pattern to the next. On Earth, those numbers are close enough that most people never think about the difference. On Venus, that difference becomes the whole story. Venus completes one orbit around the Sun in about 225 Earth days. If you only looked at its yearly motion, Venus would seem fairly quick. It is closer to the Sun than Earth, so it does not need as much time to finish one trip around the star. But its rotation is unbelievably slow. Venus takes about 243 Earth days to complete one full turn relative to the stars. That means the planet takes longer to spin once than it takes to finish an entire year. That is the headline people remember, and it is already strange enough on its own. Even if Venus rotated slowly in the same direction as most planets, it would still be a bizarre world. But Venus adds another layer of weirdness. It rotates retrograde, which means it spins in the opposite direction of most planets in the solar system. If you could watch the planets from far above the Sun's north pole, most of them would be turning one way while Venus would be turning the other. That single detail changes how the Sun appears to move in the Venusian sky and changes how astronomers talk about its day. It is not just slow. It is slow and backwards. Because Venus spins retrograde, the Sun would appear to rise in the west and set in the east. That alone would make the planet feel surreal to any human visitor. But the deeper weirdness comes from the way that backward spin interacts with Venus's forward motion around the Sun. A sidereal day on Venus is about 243 Earth days, but the solar day, the rhythm tied to the Sun crossing the sky, is different. The orbit and the backward rotation partially cancel each other in a strange dance, so the solar day on Venus comes out to about 117 Earth days. That means both clocks are bizarre, just in different ways. So when people say a day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus, they are talking about the sidereal day, the full rotation relative to the stars. That statement is true, and it is one of the strangest true facts in planetary science. But the solar day is its own mind-bending result. In one sense, Venus turns so slowly that one spin takes longer than one orbit. In another sense, the path of the Sun through the sky still takes almost 4 months of Earth time. Either version would sound unnatural on its own. Put them together and Venus starts to feel less like a nearby planet and more like a system designed to challenge human intuition. Now imagine what this would feel like if you could somehow stand there and survive. The sky would not race through sunrise and sunset the way it does on Earth. Time would seem stretched. Daylight would not feel like a daily event. It would feel like a slow geological mood shift. But even that picture is incomplete, because Venus hides its surface under a permanent blanket of thick clouds. You would not get a clean blue horizon with a sharp sunrise. Light would be filtered through a crushing atmosphere, and the sky would glow through haze instead of opening like a normal morning. Venus turns time into something heavy. The atmosphere is a huge part of why Venus feels so hostile. It is dominated by carbon dioxide and layered with thick clouds rich in sulfuric acid droplets. The pressure at the surface is immense, roughly equivalent to what you would feel deep under Earth's oceans. A human without extraordinary protection would not be dealing with just heat or just toxic air or just pressure. They would be dealing with all of them at once. Venus is not a place where one environmental problem went wrong. It is a place where almost every environmental setting seems tuned toward punishment. That is why the planet feels so extreme even before you reach the ground. And then there is the temperature. Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system at the surface, even hotter than Mercury, which sits closer to the Sun. The reason is not simple distance. The reason is the atmosphere. Venus traps heat with terrifying efficiency. Sunlight comes in, energy gets absorbed, and the thick atmosphere makes it very hard for that heat to escape back into space. The result is a runaway greenhouse world, where surface temperatures climb high enough to melt lead. So when people picture Venus as Earth's twin because of its size, they are only seeing the silhouette. The real planet is closer to a pressure cooker wrapped in clouds. The surface itself is also deeply unnerving. Radar maps show wide volcanic plains, broken uplands, and enormous structures shaped by heat, internal geology, and a world that does not behave like ours. Some spacecraft have landed there, but surviving on the ground has always been a race against time. The environment destroys machinery fast. Electronics overheat. Systems fail. The atmosphere presses down with relentless force. That matters because it changes how we emotionally place Venus in our heads. Mars feels distant and cold. Jupiter feels gigantic and stormy. Venus feels intimate, close, and almost familiar until you look at the details. Then it becomes one of the most frightening places we know. That contrast is one reason Venus matters so much to scientists. It is not just another random planet with weird trivia attached to it. It is a nearby world that shows how similar starting conditions do not guarantee similar outcomes. Venus and Earth are close in size, both rocky, and both formed in the inner solar system. But they diverged into radically different worlds. One became habitable. The other became a furnace under crushing air. So when astronomers study Venus, they are not only learning about one planet. They are studying a warning about planetary evolution, climate feedback, and the thin line between balance and catastrophe. Venus also changes how we think about normality in the solar system. Earth trains us to assume that a day is short, that the sun's path is obvious, and that nearby rocky planets must at least share some basic rhythm with us. Venus tears up that mental shortcut. It shows that a planet can be almost Earth's size and still run on a schedule that feels fundamentally alien. It shows that the familiar can be deceptive. A bright object in our sky, beautiful enough to earn names like the morning star and evening star, turns out to hide one of the strangest clocks in the neighborhood. Beauty, closeness, and familiarity do not equal simplicity. There is also something philosophically unsettling about Venus because it scrambles the way humans use time to understand a place. On Earth, daily life is built around sunrise, sunset, work, sleep, seasons, and repeating cycles that feel natural because our planet keeps feeding them back to us. Venus does not offer that kind of comfort. Its rotation is too slow, its sky would not behave the way we expect, and its physical environment would overpower any human sense of routine. On Venus, the ordinary language of morning, afternoon, and evening starts to lose meaning. That is rare. It is one thing to visit a dangerous place. It is another to imagine a place where even time stops feeling friendly. The longer you sit with Venus, the stranger it becomes. A year is shorter than a sidereal day. A solar day is different again. The planet spins backwards. The sun would move the wrong way in the sky. The surface is hot enough to destroy ordinary expectations about what a rocky planet should be. The air is crushing. The clouds are hostile. And all of this belongs not to some distant exoplanet buried in a data chart, but to one of our nearest planetary neighbors. Venus is proof that the solar system did not arrange itself for human comfort. It arranged itself according to physics, and physics can produce worlds that feel almost maliciously unintuitive. That is why the Venus day-year fact sticks in people's minds long after they hear it. It is not just a piece of trivia. It is a doorway into a bigger realization. The solar system is much weirder than the tidy classroom version we grow up with. Nearby planets are not simple variations on Earth. They are their own worlds, running on their own logic, shaped by motion, chemistry, sunlight, atmosphere, and timescales that can feel almost absurd from a human perspective. Venus takes something as basic as the meaning of a day and turns it into a reminder that reality is often stranger than fiction, especially when you leave Earth behind.